Smith. So brief introduction here. So again, my name is Scott Burke. I'm the AEC Cloud Solutions Program Manager here at IMAGINiT. So I work with our teams in relation to the Autodesk BIM 360 and Unified Platform tools, which both come under the main moniker there of Autodesk Construction Cloud. The Autodesk Construction Cloud is all the Autodesk BIM 360 and Unified Platform tools. And my background is architecture, engineering, structure, and some construction as well. I've been working in the industry, both as in the real world, working as an architect and working as a reseller for the past 20 years. And Jeremy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you, Scott. My name is Jeremy Smith, and I currently serve as a Senior Technical Support Specialist in our Solution Center. Primarily support our building products, primarily Revit, and of course BIM 360 platform and the services that go along with that. My background, I started in the industry at an engineering firm, MEP engineering firm, cut my teeth with CAD way back in the 90s. Worked at Autodesk for a time supporting Revit MEP, and eventually managed and oversaw the Revit support team and the Vault support teams. And I'm back here at IMAGINiT for actually the second time. I was here back in 2004. So again, thank you for joining us and happy to be with you today.
Thanks. All right. So again, today's topic is, of course, Autodesk Docs, not to be confused with BIM 360 Docs, which is a separate product and still, of course, available. So today, what are the challenges that we're overcoming or trying to overcome in our work environments? Well, and these are the things that BIM 360 or Autodesk Docs, I should say, basically helps solve, which is providing a common data environment for everyone to work in. So everyone keeps all their work in one single place, a single source of truth, of course. We also have ways to manage issues within that environment, and also ways we're just doing continuous collaboration here. That's exactly what this is all about. So with BIM 360 Docs, it's facilitating here connected teams. So now we have all these teams, different companies, different places, wherever geographically. We're all in a common place where we're all connected together. And that's really what ultimately what all of this is about. And that, of course, leads into connected workflows. So we can create workflows in these cloud solutions, and especially Autodesk Docs has the ability to create reviews and transmittals and things like that, and markups and issue management. All those things are kind of those connected workflows there. And again, that keeps all the data connected in one single place. And again, that's what this is ultimately about, is that connected environment. So with the BIM 360 or Autodesk products now that are now available. So the BIM 360 Docs, of course, is still available, as is BIM 360 Build. Those are still viable, available products. BIM 360 Model Coordination and BIM 360 Design have been renamed. Those are the only two products, actually, that have been renamed. The rest of the products are still their original names. So Model Coordination, BIM 360 Model Coordination became BIM 360 Collaborate, and BIM 360 Design became Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro. And then we have two new products here, which is Autodesk Takeoff and Autodesk Build. These are two brand new products here. And again, the foundation, though, for all of these tools, just like with the BIM 360 environment, is Autodesk Docs. That is the foundation document management tool for all of the unified platform, the Autodesk Cloud Construction Cloud tools. The unified platform, as it's now called, is still centered on Autodesk Docs as that foundational document management system. And then you purchase the other tools based on what your specific needs are. So we got Collaborate for clash detection. We got Collaborate Pro for Revit work sharing in the cloud, and it includes the clash detection. We have Autodesk Takeoff for doing quantification of your models or your 2D files. And then we have Autodesk Build for basically in the field construction management. But when we look at Autodesk Docs, what's also unique here is it comes with these other tools. So if you have the other higher level tools, it simply comes with Docs. Also, if you have an AEC Collection license, then you get with it now, just like you get AutoCAD and Revit and all the other AEC tools and Civil 3D and so on, you now also get Autodesk Docs as part of that entitlement. And that's actually the only way to get Autodesk Docs by itself, is via the the AEC Collection. So you cannot buy it separately, and it's tied to that license. It isn't like you have a floating license of Docs. That means the same license that you use to access your Revit with your AEC Collection is the same license you use to access Autodesk Docs. So Autodesk Docs, as we already mentioned here, is that centralized document management system for the entire project lifecycle, whether it's just the Docs level where you're just sharing files, markups, issues, and such. It also becomes a foundational area to keep all of your design documents, AutoCAD, Revit, and so forth, Civil 3D, Plant 3D even, can all live in this environment. And then, of course, it has document control versioning for all the different file types, regardless of the file type that you put up there. It's going to be versioned. You have Revit and AutoCAD publishing, meaning that you can use this tool as a universal viewer for those two file types and many others, of course. Comparison tools that are built in there as well. Approval workflows, issues and markups, reporting and analytics. So Jeremy is going to talk about most of that. And as I mentioned before, it's included in all the other subscriptions, whether it be the AEC Collection subscription now, or if you subscribe to BIM Collaborate Pro, Takeoff or Build, Docs is the foundation to that. So again, that's what we're talking about today, of course, is Autodesk Docs. So again, Autodesk Docs is all about document control, document version, and document approvals. Those are kind of some of the key functions. And now I'm going to hand this over to Jeremy, and he's going to kind of go into a deeper dive into the actual product here and show it in action. So I'm going to change Jeremy over to the presenter. All right, Jeremy, you can go ahead and present.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Just want to confirm you can see my my screen now.
Yes.
I'm assuming we're good. All right, excellent. So as Scott mentioned, Autodesk Docs provides that common data environment. We're going to just talk about what some specific features of Autodesk Docs and how it facilitates communication, accountability across a project. And we'll do that by kind of going through about 9 features or so and just briefly doing an overview. We'll have some time for questions at the end if there's anything that kind of went a little too quick for you, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of what's included here. So let's start with the document management, and as Scott pointed out, it's a common data environment. And so with Autodesk Docs, it enables the administrator to set up a site and to host projects, to set up a folder structure, and of course to invite members to be a party to that project. So let's just take briefly a look at what Docs looks like here. So we see a folder structure, again, based on per project. We had just have this introductory to Autodesk Docs sample project. Very simply, you can create folders, subfolders, upload files, very simple navigation, especially for those who may not be using design tools a lot. Also, if you look at some of the documents, and there's documentation about which file types are supported here, but if I go under specifications, I have some Word files. And if you have Office 365 licenses or Office 365 account, when you open these doc files, you'll have the ability to edit them here, depending on your permission to that folder or those files. So again, it's just a common data environment, very easy to set up and organize structure for all project consultants and team members to organize files. Let's go back to our next feature. So just as important in a project, and that is to control documentation, ensuring that people have access to the right information, ensuring that everybody is looking at the right files, the right version, ensuring that only people that should see certain things have the right permissions. And so the ability to control that in Docs, again, very, very simple to do, by user, by role, by company. So let me just briefly show you that. So here in project files, typically you'll see, we call this the 3-button menu, which opens up a side menu for a lot of the features or actions that you'll take. And let's look at permissions briefly. And as I mentioned, you can set permissions to folders by individual user or by role. And if you assign it per role, you can expand that role to see who has that role assigned to them, and by extension, who has those permissions. And of course, you can also give permission to an entire company to folders or files. I'll just demonstrate that real quick. If I just click Add, and I'll type MEP just to filter that, I'll just add the company, MEP Installers. I'll give them view permission, click Add. And once that finishes, if I just expand the company, again, you'll see who is a member of that company, and they, of course, inherit the rights. One thing to clarify about folder permissions, again, you may want certain consultants to see just a particular subfolder, not the entire structure. And that's where you have to be careful about where you assign permissions, because subfolders inherit the same permissions as the root folder. So if someone has full rights to project models, they have full rights to the subfolders underneath that. So depending on the amount of control, the deeper the level, that's where you get probably the most control over the permissions. And that's why this word inherited is here, because these roles and company inherited the permissions from the folder above. But as you can see, it's very easy to set permissions at these different levels: by user, role, by company. Let's go back to our next feature. The other part of this is document version control, and ensuring that what people are seeing is the right version, or having the ability to compare versions or review the progress of project documents, maybe what it looked like in version 1, and after certain revisions, what that process looked like. And there's some pretty powerful compare tools in Autodesk Docs. So let's take a look at that briefly. So here in Docs, let me first open a Revit file that we have uploaded here. In this project, we have a grocery store is our sample project. So you could do comparison of versions in a 3D model like this, or you can do it on 2D sheets. We'll show you both. So in this case, I'm looking at a 3D model of the store, and up here in the upper right is the compare tool. And that allows me, especially, let me just cancel just to show you, this pull down will show you that there's multiple versions. And the most current is labeled just that, current. But this shows that I have 3 versions of this model that have been published. So back to compare, let me just compare version 1 with version 3. And I'll hit that control. It'll take a second to refresh. And once that happens, it brings up this menu that allows me to filter and really hone in on how the 2 versions compare, what's been added, what's been removed. And bear in mind, these are on-off switches. So if I want to see added, if I select it, that turns it off. If I want whatever's turned on is what I'm looking at. So if I isolate just added, I'm seeing just the elements here that were added since version 1. Or if I just want to see what was modified, I'll just filter for that condition. And it's really, again, visually powerful to see some of the changes when it's overlaying the 2 versions together. So for instance, if I pick on this door, it highlights the 2 versions here, so I can see where it is in version 3. The door was over here in version 1. Or if I select this wall over here, again, there's where the wall is in the current version 3. It originally was back here. So you can kind of visually see the changes between revisions and very easily navigate through that with this menu. That's in 3D. Let me exit the compare tool, and let me show that to you in another view. I'm going to open a PDF and show you another feature. And actually, there's another way to navigate to this, but since I'm here already, I won't waste the time on that. But there's a couple of ways to do versioning comparison. But here in the 2D view, again, I can select the compare tool again in the upper right, And I'll do the same thing. I'll compare version 1 to version 3 and select compare. And by default overlay, color-coded overlay of the two versions on top of each other. So red is the current, version 1 is the old. And it allows you just to look in one way, just to kind of see what changed maybe in this area. You can see that red is new, blue is what was there before. The other kind of very cool tool is to almost see the evolution of the changes between 1 and 3. And so under this comparison tool, you can switch from overlay to side by side. And when you do that, it gives you this blue slide bar. On the left-hand side is the current version. On the right-hand side is the old version. And sliding over this blue line, essentially I can just walk through and see what changed between version 1 and version 3. That door swing went the other way. In the current version, they added an electrical closet here. And again, as I go through and see some of the changes, columns were added. And this door had to be more ADA compliant. They switched that swing. And down here, some cooler, maybe a beer cooler was added down here. So this is another very cool way to kind of compare the changes between versions in document versioning. Again, that just ensures that people are looking at the right thing at the right time. So let's go back to our deck. Another feature that, again, probably very familiar to many of you, whether it was on this platform or others, is the ability to do electronic markups, to communicate intent or to ask questions, and very easily point out something that needs to be clarified. Again, managing issues and communication during the project. So it comes with Autodesk Docs comes with a very simple markup tool. Sort of what you see is what you get. But let me just demonstrate that briefly. So I'm going to go back to our Revit model. And over here, this little tab up here allows me to look at all the 2D sheets that were published as well. So I'm just going to open a 2D version of this Revit file. And as you can see here, someone already did a markup, but simply to add a markup, you can zoom into an area and you see the tools over here. Pretty self-explanatory. I want to draw a cloud around this door. The other thing you'll notice too is I wasn't able to select the color or do any of those things when I drew this. But once I draw it, if I hit the edit tool, then I have all these menus to change, the thickness of the cloud border or the line work. I can add, if I wanted to, some fill, within the cloud if I wanted to, and control the opaqueness or take away the fill by hitting the line. And here's how you control it after the fact. I can also add a call out tool. And again, I'm holding my left button down and just essentially placing it where I want and then letting it go. Immediately brings up an editor. So I can type in, is this door swinging? Same thing, control the color of the text, the size, and essentially just make it a little bit more legible for the reader. Very, very simple, straightforward tools, text tools. And again, after you draw things, you can select them, edit it, and change the properties of those elements. So very easy to draw those changes. Now, the key thing, though, is right now I'm the only one seeing this markup. But in order for others to see them, I need to hit this Publish button. That makes it essentially public for anyone else to view that next time they look at this version of the Revit model. They'll see my markup when it's published. I can delete it and I can always unpublish it until I'm ready to share it with anybody else. So the next feature, that's markups. Again, very simple tool. As with any project, there'll be issues along the way. And Autodesk Docs, again, provides a platform and that repository to manage those issues, to ensure people are accountable for resolving those issues. And so let's show how that tool, what that tool looks like in Docs. So in this same view, what I've done is before is I created this markup just a moment ago, but now if you want to actually attach an issue that needs to be resolved or essentially assigned to someone to resolve, you could do the same thing. So here in the same markup tool palette, you'll see a circle with a checkbox. That opens your issue menu. And out of the box, there's several issue types that are included that you can select from. So for this demonstration, again, just to be very quick about it, I'll select this as a design type and place that. And it just uses a shortcut D, which is what was programmed in there. Again, that's customizable. And now that I've placed an issue here, now I can actually add some other fields and assign it to someone to be accountable for either getting me an answer or resolving it. So I could put a description, door swing, ADA compliant, question mark. You can assign it to a person here that is in the project. I'll assign it to Scott for now. Location, you can leave. You can give a due date. You know, maybe I'll give it a due date of Friday, and I can leave those other things, the start date unspecified. And of course, root cause, again, this is a pre-populated list out of the box, and something that'll give it a little bit more meaning or context. So I'll just say code compliance for the root cause. And now that that issue is created, and it's related to this markup based on where I placed it. So now just for a moment, I'll show you where those issues show up. So back here under issues, anything that was open is listed here. I can filter this list by what's assigned to me, or the type, or the root cause. There's all sorts of ways to filter this list. And so I can see who an particular issue is assigned to, and the status of it as well. As I mentioned a moment ago, that list of types and permissions and root causes out of the box, there's several, but again, you can customize those under settings. So I selected types, and I can create different types or remove them or deactivate some of these. I can do the same for permissions. And again, I can create my own root cause. So that list of things that are available when you place an issue, project admins can customize that per your needs. So that's issue tracking. Again, very simple to get to. It's in the same markup tool we showed a moment ago. And then of course, tracking the accountability of that under the issues tab, very simple to do as well. The next feature that again supports communication and collaboration throughout the project, seamlessly allowing people to see drawings and content. Autodesk Docs support 2D and 3D files. We've already seen it based on the files I've had for now. Very simple to navigate, not only just to view, but to actually do things like walkthroughs. So let me just show you that briefly back in Docs. So let me go back to our 3D model again. And I'm going to start on a 2D view because it kind of illustrates a very simple way to look at a plan and then kind of situate yourself to take a look around in 3D. So here in the 2D sheet of this main level, you'll see down here this sort of place me option. And I just select that, and I can pick a place here where I want to place myself, essentially, in the plan, and then orient which way I'm looking once this finishes. So I'll just kind of look towards this casework. And once I select that, it puts me three-dimensionally in that location and switches to 3D. This navigation tip, you may find it helpful as to, how do I move forward, look around, walk backwards, orbit. You can always dismiss this once you get comfortable with it. But again, if I have a wheel on my mouse just going backwards, as simple as that, just spinning to look around and navigate through the building. The performance is pretty good. Again, all of this is supported right on Autodesk Docs, so anyone who has access to the folder can quickly see not only just a 2D plan, but what that looks like in a 3D view with that placement tool. And there's also fly-throughs and other things that allow you to very easily see design intent with the latest documents. So let's go back to, and of course then I can go back. I'll leave this up for now, so let me switch back. The next feature is sharing files and folders, and this may come in handy if perhaps you need to share information with someone who is not a member of the project. So you have the ability to share public links with those who are not members of the project, and that'll send them an email with a link with the ability to download the documents that you share with them. So let's just show how you would control that. And again, this is typically controlled by the project admins on a project. They determine whether or not public sharing is allowed, and if so, what the criteria is for that. So back here in the Docs tab, I'm going to go to the Settings tab over here, Advanced Settings, and you'll see there's essentially this on-off switch. You either allow public links to allow members to be able to send those or not. And if you turn that feature on, you'll notice it says it enables project members to publicly share sheets as long as they have these permissions. The project admins can also determine how long, what's the maximum amount of time a link will be active, and this is the cap. So as I'll show you in a moment, when you share a public link, you can determine how long that link is active up to whatever this cap is set by the admin. So now that I turn that on, let me show you how that works back here in Files. I'll just select this CAD file, and here in the three-dot menu, I can select Share. And because my public link setting is turned on, I can select this anyone with link option. The other key thing to keep in mind, because remember, multiple versions are stored here on Autodesk Docs, you can ensure that when they open the link, that they are seeing the most recent version. So if changes have been made, by default they'll see the latest version. Or if you want them to see a moment in time, if you want them to see the version that is set now, even though they open your link a week later, you can set it to that. The other thing, instead of creating an email from here, which generates an email from BIM 360, you can also just simply copy the link, paste it into your own email. Sometimes it's helpful, especially if maybe the recipient email from the BIM 360 system gets sent to spam, for instance. So it allows you to just compose your own email, send them a link, and depending on how many days you have that active, they'll have the ability to download those files and view them, even though they're not members of the project. Our next feature here, next to last, is document approvals. And again, this gives you the ability, especially if you have a current system by which documents go through an approval process before they're released. If you have a senior project manager or an engineer that needs to review documents before they're released, you can mimic that or create your own approval process within Autodesk Docs to ensure that there's again accountability and an audit stream of when things were approved before they are released. So just to show you how that works briefly. So in the Reviews tab, we set up an approval workflow already, but let me just show you where that is under Settings. Here is where you would create whatever workflow that works for your project or your company. especially if you have a particular standard you have to follow. So here's where you create it, and I won't go through the whole process of naming it. Instead, I'll show you the one that we already have created. So under approval, approved for construction, we set up this approval workflow. And just to kind of show you the main features of it, you give it a name, a description if needed. You could determine how many steps are involved. So when if I were to go back to create approval workflow, it gives you a whole host of options. You could have 2 levels, 6 levels, whatever matches your current process. In this case, it's a 2-step approval process. We have an initial review, a final review. You determine which project members can actually initiate document approval, who the assigned reviewers are, who the final approvers are as well, and then the status when something is either approved or rejected or approved with comments. And again, it has these icons that are associated with it. You also have this optional step of if a document goes through the approval process, once it's approved, you can have that document, model, spec, whatever file you have in Autodesk Docs to be copied to a folder of your choice. And so it's a way of sort of like moving those into a place where you know if you send a transmittal of those, you're sending the approved documents. Again, this is optional. Let me cancel this real quick and show you how to kick off an actual approval on a document. So back under Files, just for a change, I'll go back to our specifications, and let's just say I want to put this spec through an approval process. So I just simply select it. Again, the 3-button menu, Submit for Review. And because we only have one approval workflow, that's the one I'm selecting. It could be multiple in here. And you can see what that looks like, the approval process. You can give it a name. Whatever you want to put here. I have the files there, and I click Submit. Now again, who that goes to is determined by who I had set as a reviewer and approver. You'll notice the notification only goes to the reviewer. You may have others that can sort of watch over the process. They don't necessarily get an email notification. So that can be confusing. Sometimes people expect an email with every sort of action taken in Autodesk Docs. It's not always the case. It's really determined by what your assignment is and what the action taken was. Again, you can notify other team members, as I mentioned, type in a quick message, and then once you're ready, you can hit send. So now that document's been submitted for a review. If I go to my Reviews tab, you'll see an open issue that was created, who it's assigned to, the status, etc. So I can take, because I'm a project manager, I have sort of all the permissions. I can sort of take ownership of this just to show what it looks like. So I could start the review. And again, it tells me because I'm taking ownership, no one else is going to be able to take any action. Start the review process. And again, I can put comments. This looks good. Click Add. And then I can submit the review. What that does is it takes it to the second step, the final approval of that approval process that we created. And again, it just says who's going to be notified. And again, once you select that, they'll get an email notification because they're set up as reviewers. But again, I'll just take this next step, start the review again. I can just briefly look at it. And let me go back here. I think I opened the document by accident, Scott, didn't I? Yep. So I hit start review. This is final approval. And then I can select one of those statuses that I'd selected. Let's say approved. So again, based on how I set up my review process, what happens is now this file, if I go back to my folder structure, you'll see that it was moved to, first of all, let me show you if you scan over here. Make sure that was done. I didn't submit it. That's the problem. Now it's approved. And hopefully if I did this right, once this refreshes, now it's been placed in the approved documents because I neglected the step to submit the review. So again, it makes a copy there. So that's part of the process that's optional. And it also highlights that document went through the approval process. So again, you can customize that whole chain of events to match your current process and again, track the status along the way. Let's go to our last feature, and then we'll turn it back over to Scott. This is obviously very self-explanatory. Many of you are probably used to transmittals. There's transmittals included with some Autodesk products already. But this is a way to set up an audit trail of when you actually share information with someone, as opposed to just simply attaching files to an email. Transmittals sort of track when something was sent, to whom it was sent to. Very easy to send transmittals. Again, I can go to my project documents, my specifications, and I might just want to send these 3 specs. So I select them, same thing, create transmittal, and give it a name. I can send those particular role, company, users, however you want to set that up. They'll get notification. And if you send it to multiple people, you can select the option of whether or not they can see who else got the transmittal. Shows the files that are attached. Type in a message. And it's really, quite frankly, that simple. And so it's taking those files, creating essentially a zip file that can be downloaded by the recipient. And on my transmittals tab, you'll see all the transmittals that were sent. And there's the zip file if I want to download the files myself, or the recipient will see that same link. And again, it gives you an audit trail of what was sent, when it was sent, and to whom. So those 9 features are the key features. It's certainly not all of them, but we hope it gives you an idea of how Autodesk Docs will support communication on that single data environment, that central data environment, and ensure accountability across the team, manage communication, resolve issues across the board. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Scott, who's going to talk about some key differences between Autodesk Docs and what some of you may be familiar with, BIM 360 Docs. So over to you, Scott.
All right, I got it right now, Jeremy. And you should be able to see my screen again.
We do.
Yep, great. So again, the differences here. So when we look at Autodesk Docs, we have document management in a unified platform, of course. Now this is key here. It's not available, as I mentioned, as a standalone offering at this time. So that means you can only get access to it either by having an AEC Collection license or owning one of the higher products such as Collaborate Pro, Takeoff, or Autodesk Build. And as I mentioned before, as you can see here, it's added to the AEC Collection and is part of those other products there. Also, it's only on the US server, so if you are in Europe, for instance, all the data will still be hosted in a US server for now. As time goes along, they are going to be working on standing up a European solution server, just like they have for BIM 360 right now, just not at the moment. And also, there is no mobile app. So unlike BIM 360 Docs, there is no mobile app for anything within the Docs environment. Now, obviously, if you have Autodesk Build, then that comes with the Autodesk plan grid, the build, or the plan grid build viewer, which allows you to have access to that information in the field if you have Build. So the mobile app's only available with the Build platform. Now, if we look at the existing product, BIM 360 Docs, and first of all, this product's not going anywhere. It's a completely self-contained product. It's still going to be there. You actually get access to either of these. So it's the same thing. It's the common document management platform for the BIM 360 platform, as opposed to the new unified platform. So these are two different platforms here. BIM 360 Docs, however, though, can be bought separately as its own standalone product if that's what you need. It does have a mobile app, of course, so if you want to be able to view things in the field in the Docs environment, in the Autodesk or BIM 360 Docs environment, you can. It's also, though, added to the Docs collection. So even though with the AEC Collection you do have access to Autodesk Docs, you also get a companion license of Autodesk Docs. Okay, so just be aware that you do get that. Now, if you buy BIM 360 Docs, you do not get access to Autodesk Docs. Again, Autodesk Docs is only available via the collection or via one of the higher products such as Collaborate, Collaborate Pro, or Autodesk Build. So that's an important distinction there. So it is part of that. Of course, we have the US and European server, and of course, it has that BIM 360 app. But that's the only real big difference here is really just no mobile app for it. Otherwise, it's mostly the identical product. It has identical workflows. There's going to be newer workflows, though, as time goes on. And of course, the Autodesk Docs product is incorporated into the new Autodesk Build, and of course, Collaborate and Collaborate Pro. So with that, I can just open up the floor to any questions.